Hello and welcome to Autofocus. Tata Motors is a market leader in the electric vehicle segment by a long margin, and the Nexon EV is one of their best-selling models. It is an electric vehicle that really broke into a segment and created a market for itself. It has stood the ground. It's got more than 53,000 happy customers, and now it's time for a facelift. Unlike the fossil fuel Nexon that we drove last week and which has already had two facelifts, the Nexon EV gets its first facelift now. It is a model that is going to look very similar like its predecessor with its ICE counterpart. So the Nexon EV used to be offered in two battery pack sizes, and so naturally two different driving ranges. The predecessor model used to be called the Nexon EV Max and the Nexon EV Prime. The nomenclature has changed, the variant strategy has changed with this new facelift, and now this is going to be called the Tata Nexon EV Medium Range and the Tata Nexon EV Long Range. The Nexon EV medium range being offered with the smaller battery pack, 30 kilowatt hour, and the long range being offered with the larger 40 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now, in addition to that, Tata Motors has done away with the whole variant appendage for the Nexon. Even with the petrol model, the same thing continues for the EV model. It's now gotten 3 or 4 different personas is what Tata Motors calls it. The personas offering different features, different technology packs, and it is going to be able to distinguish one from the other using these new persona tags. So in terms of its body panels, in terms of its roofline, in terms of hardware, is identical with the petrol Nexon. Its lighting elements also remain largely the same, but there are differences that do identify this as the Nexon EV. One of them being this LED connector band that sits right between the two headlamps. All of the light elements are now LED. Familiar LED now that we saw with the petrol, which also doubles up as the DRL and the turn indicators, progressive turn indicators at that continue. This band is the addition to the EV, and what this does, in addition to also lighting up to deliver a signature lighting element, is the fact that it does also deliver a charge status sort of progression every time you plug in the EV for a charge, let's say to a wall socket or to a DC fast charger. The light elements, of course, start expanding from about about there for a 20% charge and go all the way to the end to indicate that it's a fully charged battery pack. From this point on, it of course is brand new. The front fender is completely new compared to the petrol Nexon. The EV, of course, getting that special vertical slatted grille. It doesn't need any breathing because, of course, there is no engine behind the front grille, and yet it does deliver a slightly more interesting statement. From the side, the new Tata Nexon EV looks identical to the fossil fuel Nexon, and it is not still a bad profile to be looking at. Its coupe-like roofline and its pretty tight build and that footprint gives it a fairly interesting profile still. The only identification for the EV, of course, is the light blue EV badge on either side of the front doors, but the rear is still also got some identification for it to be looked upon as an EV. It of course gets this large capital lettered EV badging, the Nexon .EV being its new sort of logo and identification. That same connected tail lamp with that LED stripe running across, and the interesting progressive turn indicators sitting at the rear. The overall construction is the same as in the new fossil fuel Nexon. The rear fender gets some minor modifications. And the interesting bit, of course, is again, though if you were to look at the alloy wheels, the 16-inch alloy wheels look identical to the petrol Nexon, but tires that the EV gets is low rolling resistance tires that have been specifically co-developed with MRF. These tires apparently offer a 2 to 3% improvement in efficiency, and that is going to add up to a lot more of that range that people are usually anxious about when it comes to EVs. There are other features that Tata Motors officials tell me is going to help the Nexon EV get a little more range. It in fact is about 12 kilometers of extra range, rated driving range for both the MR and the LR. The extra bits coming from a slightly more aerodynamic profile thanks to the changes to the hood, and of course some changes to the IV back, the battery active control region and braking algorithm that is now tuned to deliver a little better performance. Overall, Tata Motors officials tell me that on the road the driving range should almost be 7% more than the previous Nexon EV. On the rated range side, of course, it only gets about 12 kilometers, which Tata Motors officials tell me is because of a specific cycle that is followed for the rating. So we saw the cabin of the Tata Nexon ICE variants that was launched last week, and like I said, both the ICE and the EV new Nexons have been parallelly developed, and so much of the kit is very similar. And in fact, as we are sitting in the cabin of the new EV, I realize much of the cabin is identical with the ICE Nexon that was launched last week, and the cabin is similarly focused in terms of digitization, gadgetization, and that whole attempt at giving it a slightly more premium minimalist finish. So you have that same orientation for the infotainment screen that crowns this center stack, the thin bezel, small frame, so that it maximizes the screen, and that screen of course is a 2K high resolution display. Only difference of course in this new Nexon EV is the larger screen. It's a 12.3 inch touchscreen, which is larger than the 10.2 inch touchscreen of the Nexon ICE variants. You do get this larger screen only in the top trim empowered variant of this Nexon EV. You get that same 10.25 inch digital instrument cluster, that same sort of digital flat bottomed steering wheel, perfect to hold, great chunky nice stitched fake leather finish with some of those digital touch controls on the spokes. The steering boss is of course also made to look like a digital screen, but it's actually simply a backlit, very smartly made backlit screen that then gives you the impression of the Tata logo coming on when you turn the electric battery system on. Auto aircon controls, all of that touch screen again, ventilated seats with this whole leatherette finish, much better cabin. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, the purple cabin was a little too garish for me, but this one here is a nice grey and sort of light grey dark grey combination that works very well for me. Single pane sunroof again, the overall seat comfort, ergonomics, all of that spot on. My only crib has always been the stock indicators and the windscreen cleaning wiper stalks being a little far away from the 9.3 position, which is something that we have found in all Tata vehicles. 12 speaker JBL music system, and this entire infotainment screen has been coordinated and co-developed with Harman. The one addition for the EV of course is this arcade.ev option. It is a bunch of apps that you can download using hotspotting or Wi-Fi, and you can either listen to music, play arcade games. All of these functions are available in some of the variants with the Nexon EV, but you must remember that some of these apps like the games and video apps will not work while you are in drive mode. It will only work when you are in parked mode. The arcade.ev of course being offered because with the Nexon EV you are going to be faced with potentially a situation where you'll have to wait for a charge to be completed, let's say, or some of the other reasons where you are, let's say you're going camping and you're parked at a spot and you need something to do while you are sitting idle. You can then use a bunch of apps through arcade.ev. So that then is the cabin of the new Nexon EV. Much better finished than the predecessor. Lots of features then that you will find handy, and of course the digital instrument cluster delivers a lot of the information that you would expect to see for the whole battery electric ecosystem, state of charge, driving range left, much of the other drive related information that you would expect to find in an electric vehicle. The long-range Nexon EV battery pack can be charged both on a home wall socket at a 3.3 kilowatt AC wall box. It also is offered with a 7.2 kilowatt charger on board, and the MR is offered with the 3.3 kilowatt charger. Nexon EV is capable of only handling 30 kilowatt DC chargers. In terms of the kind of DC chargers available in the market today, there are ones which are 50 and 60 kilowatt, and those will still be only delivering 30 kilowatt charge to the Nexon EV. That's the max it can handle. Charging using a wall socket takes 10% to 100%, takes about 15 hours for the LR and 10.5 hours for the MR. It also can be charged using the 7.2 kilowatt AC charger, which then can deliver full charge in the MR in about 4 hours and 20 minutes and 6 hours for the long range variant. Both can charge using a DC charger, get a full charge in 56 minutes. The new Tata Nexon EV also gets the vehicle-to-vehicle and vehicle-to-load charging capabilities. There is a separate charging cable and socket offered, which then allows you either to charge another vehicle by transferring charge from your own Nexon EV to the other one. There is also the possibility of you using the cable to then draw power from your Nexon EV to charge electrical appliances like a coffee machine or a microwave oven, or even lighting for a tent if you were to go camping. Of course, like I had mentioned, it now gets a new twin nomenclature. One is the medium range and the other is the long range. Tata Motors says they have completely replaced the permanent magnet synchronous AC motor that powers the new Nexon EV. This motor is now 20 kgs lighter, and its power output varies between the two, medium and long range. The MR's peak power output is 95 kilowatt or 129 horsepower. The long range produces 145 horsepower or 106.4 kilowatt. Max torque is the same, 215 Newton meters for both the MR and LR. Total peak torque available is lower compared to the previous outgoing Nexon EV, but then Tata Motors officials tell me that at the wheel, the torque available has gone up from about 2200 Newton meters to about 2500 Newton meters. So it does feel quicker, and that is the fundamental reason for the change. It also is now a lighter vehicle overall. So in terms of the way the output is delivered to the wheels, it definitely feels quicker. It does get its 3 multi-drive modes, City, Sport and Eco, and you also have the option of choosing region levels using the steering mounted paddles. There are 4 levels to choose from: L1, L2, L3, L4. L4 being the most amount of region braking, which then means you can attempt one pedal driving in city using L4 mode. Mode itself continues to stay the same even if you were to be driving on sport, let's say. The region levels can be changed while you still stay on that mode. The default mode is city, and you can choose eco or sport. The battery pack sizes also change. The medium range gets the same 30 kilowatt hour battery pack, and the long range gets the 40.5 kilowatt hour battery pack. The battery pack is still a lithium ferrophosphate battery pack. It is still the same battery chemistry, but it does get a new liquid cooled system, which is a 4-stage system and is said to be even better in terms of its efficiency levels. New Nexon EV is also quicker. It's about 8.9 seconds for the 0 to 100 kilometers per hour run for the LR and 9.2 seconds for the MR. So that's the new Tata Nexon EV. This is a comprehensive upgrade to the Nexon EV. We've been driving it through the day today, experiencing all of its features. I mean, it is a genuine big jump in its feature list, in its positioning, in its impact on the road, and the way it looks. These two are two different entities. The entity that makes the fossil fuel Nexon and the entity that makes the Nexon EV, of course, is the electric mobility side. But two vehicles have been coordinated. The design, the feature list, the build, the overall construction has been coordinated, and both these models have been developed parallelly to make sure that both of them get a comprehensive upgrade. So the Nexon EV certainly feels like a huge jump in terms of the features it gets, though in terms of design it may not be too very different from the predecessor. Features now make the cabin nice to be inside, ventilated seats, the whole digitization of the dashboard, the clean finish, the materials used feel definitely better. There are small ergonomics issues that I think customers might still experience in terms of how they could have been built differently, but it still genuinely feels like an upgrade. The range improvement is welcome, and a lot of the buyers are now going to be able to customize their vehicles based on the personas that are being offered: the creative, the fearless, and the empowered. The empowered being the top trim. What we've been driving is the empowered trim variant. There will be differences between this and the others, so you would have to look at which of the variants is going to fit into your expectations and the kind of features you want in your Nexon EV. But then this is how the Nexon EV is now progressed into its next level. The ability to choose regen levels from the steering mounted paddles is definitely another addition that a lot of people will appreciate, because while you're staying in a certain mode, you can change the regen levels based on the traffic conditions, and that's always a welcome feature. So Tata Motors is offering a lot more choice with the new Nexon EV, and like I said, you get 3 base personas to choose from, but the creative, which is the base variant, or rather as Tata Motors calls it, the base persona, doesn't get the larger battery pack, so it only gets a medium range version. But the fearless and the empowered both get the medium range and the long range, and then you have, of course, different feature and tech packs which they call the fearless plus and the fearless S and the empowered plus, empowered and the empowered plus. So now prices for the predecessor model range between about 14.99 to about 19.5 lakhs. My expectation for this, of course, there's a lot more that has gone into this new facelift, and so the prices are expected to be higher, but I'm expecting a sub 16 lakh price point going all the way to about 20 lakhs for this new facelifted Nexon EV. Prices should be announced sometime next week, and bookings will then begin both online and at the nearest Tata Motors dealership.